there also drains through an underground system along Broadway that was constructed many, many years ago. And currently, Broadway, as we all know, floods quite severely. That water enters the San Antonio River just upstream of Incarnate, where the location of the Blue Hole, or the area, or the major spring of the San Antonio River. So those are the two major tributaries that enter the system and eventually come behind here and continue on into the downtown area. So there are a couple of areas that we were obviously very concerned because of the flooding and the flood risk associated with it. One, obviously, being Alma Heights and that area, so we need to keep that in mind. And I circled that up at the top right. Going a little further downstream, the other area is right around the Mangy Park area, if you're familiar with that. Now what's interesting about this is there was some discussion about a historic acequia. Well, water will find the lowest point in the terrain. And that area is also at flood risk, as well as Broadway. The other area to point out is also along the San Antonio River, right around the River Road area, and also another area along Broadway, closer, if you know where the old Buttercrust building is at. That area right there. Those are four of the major areas that are at flood risk due to a large event. Now, a couple of things we needed to look at. We needed to understand the system, understand the timing of the water. When an event occurs, where does the water come? Where does it go? Which one arrives first? What's second? How does the Olmos Dam impact the area? And then we needed to begin doing analysis to how do we correct the area? How do we fix it? How do we divert water? Instead of flooding people's homes and streets, how can we divert it such that it goes to channels and low spots and protect our investment? So we did a couple of things. We looked at the improvements needed along a diversion ditch, which is known as the Catalpa-Pershing Channel. It's a concrete ditch that runs parallel to Broadway. If you know where the Lions Field is at, right behind there, there's a concrete channel. That channel is called Catalpa-Pershing, so we need to look at that. I don't know if you've ever been out there and looked at the bridges, Mulberry and Millrace particularly. I don't know if you've ever looked carefully at those bridges, but there are these very small openings in those bridges. So the first thing that we needed to do, in order to make this entire system work, we needed to replace those small openings with a bridge. Thus, the Mulberry and Millrace improvements that you're going to hear a little bit more about. Then we also needed to see, is it possible to do some reduction of flow, reduce the water by means of doing some type of detention? And we looked at a couple of sites, and the county is going to be here, and they're going to talk to you a little bit about some of those areas. We looked at a couple of areas that are open space. Can we take advantage of those areas to slow down the water in preparation for any kind of improvements that may occur in the city of Alma Heights, whatever those may be? Can we do something to help and reduce the flow? So we looked at 3 different sites, including a potential wetland area, to not only to enhance the museum right back here in Lambert Field, but also to slow down the water in preparation for the next phase of it. The next phase would be diverting water from the San Antonio River through the park roads. And the reason why we're following the park roads is to reduce the impact to the vegetation and the trees. So by diverting water off the San Antonio River and onto the Catalpa-Pershing Channel, that, by the way, by that point, the bridges will be in place, then we can eliminate that spill that currently exists that floods the Mangy Park area and puts that area at risk. The last step in making some of these improvements is, if possible, and when possible, increase the capacity of Catalpa-Pershing, meaning widening that Catalpa-Pershing. By doing that, then we can reduce the amount of water in the San Antonio River, put it in the Catalpa-Pershing area, and put it back into the San Antonio River, right by 281, and into the San Antonio River, and down to the San Antonio Museum, the museum reach. We have to look at the system overall in a global sense to understand and then begin phasing these projects. Now, in the midst of all that, we also had to look at what we call the localized drainage, the water that floods the streets, that floods those areas. We also need to get that water off the roads, either underground or in channels, but back into the San Antonio River, and doing it in an efficient way so that it minimizes the impact of transportation. So we've looked at this system, we've come up with phases, we've kind of come up with steps, and we're here to talk to you about some of those things and get into a little bit more detail than I'm doing. I just wanted to give you an overview of some of these things, and I will be ready and willing to answer any questions that you may have. I don't know if we can take questions now, or if we need to get into some specifics, we can do that. We can do that later, because I know we're on a short time frame. So, Mike.
What we're going to do, because the next two, Art's going to present on the county related to drainage. I'm going to talk about a couple of drainage projects from the city, and then we'll take some Q&A on the drainage. And that can be an unending discussion. So we'll take a little bit of Q&A, and then again, after the meeting, we'll step back for specific details on design and how things are going to work. So, Nephi, thank you very much. And Art Villarreal, come on up from the county, flood control. And, excuse me. And let's going to talk about what they're up to at the county. Thanks, Art.
Thank you, Mike. My name is Art Villarreal with Bexar County Flood Control. We have a brochure out in front. Make sure you pick one up. Inside, we have our proposed projects as part of the overall solution to the flooding there here at Broadway corridor. So most importantly is this quad sheet. I know it's very difficult to read here on the PowerPoint, but that quad sheet, what we call a quad sheet, is inside the brochure. We're looking at 3 locations right now for detention facilities. In the interest and privacy of the individual property owners, we have been dealing with these individual property owners, and at this time, our work is very preliminary. So we're hoping to move forward with the project, and depending on the cooperation we get from the property owners and also the adjacent community. After that, we will be actually moving forward with design, looking at some other studies to ensure that what we're doing is in collaboration with the work that the City of San Antonio is doing and other governmental agencies. After that, we will be moving into the design phase. We're still approximately about 2 years away from any type of construction. So the presentation is very short here. This is the key information that's in the packet. And this is my contact information. I also have a phone number here in the back. So again, thank you for being out here tonight. And if you have any questions, I'll be in the back. Please pick up the brochure. But these detention ponds are very critical to the overall solution and are the first step in solving some of the flooding that is along here on Broadway. Thank you again.
Okay, thank you, Art. I'm going to go ahead and give the presentations for the two city projects. Many of you may not know that because it's so important that these multiple agencies work together on a monthly basis, what's called the Bear Regional Watershed Management Committee meets, and there's a lot of other committees as well. I serve on that as one of the directors. Majid Al-Ghafri, our Public Works Director, serves on it. The county serves on it, Sarah. And so basically, at least a monthly basis, the policy level folks are getting together to talk about these projects, how they work together. And then our staffs from each agencies are working even more frequently together to make sure that they're well coordinated. So the first project is the Catalpa Persian Bridge projects. You can see on the visual here, I'm sure you're all familiar with the intersection of Mulberry and Broadway, and this particular bridge at Mulberry. and Mill Race further south, closer to where 281 crosses Broadway. Those are the two bridges that we're talking about. These bridges are part of the 2007 bond program. Just so you know, there's 150 projects in the 2007 bond program, and many of you were instrumental in the development of that program, obviously voting in support. I'm sure many of you were supportive of that program. Just so you know, we are in the initial stages of what's going to be the 2012 bond program for the city, and we have the mayor and council city management agreement at this time that in May of 2012 we'll be going back to the voters with another comprehensive program, another probably 150 projects, at least the same size type program, 500 million or more, to do more drainage improvements and so forth. So I know that there's going to be very good candidate projects in this Broadway area from definitely a drainage perspective to be included in that. So in the 07 bond program, we have $3 million for the replacement of the Mill Race and Mulberry bridges. These bridges will be going from the box culvert bridges that they are today, and we're going to show pictures of that. Many of you are familiar with how they look today, to more of a span bridges for better capacity and also better aesthetics as well. This is the Mulberry Bridge as it is today. You can see that very limited capacity through the bridge, and so that is a concern today. We have an 80-foot single-span box beam bridge. That will be the replacement bridge. We'll have two 15-foot lanes, so good wide lanes, a typical urban traffic lanes, 10 or 11 feet. These will be 15-foot wide lanes across the bridge and 8-foot sidewalks on both sides of the bridge. For this bridge replacement, we don't need to go up and down the channel for improvements. The Mill Race Bridge, this is a picture of the Mill Race Bridge today. Again, we'll have an 8-foot span, a single-span box beam bridge, two 12-foot lanes, in this case 6-foot sidewalks on both sides. And so the bridge will be designed so that both of them basically, so that if and when the Talcott Persian channels widen in the future, that can be accommodated. For this particular bridge at Mill Race, we're making sure that the golf course has adequate access by getting a temporary bridge up the channel slightly so that access can be maintained during construction. We also have, we definitely want these projects to function well for 20, 30, maybe more years, but we also want them to be aesthetically pleasing as well. So there is some design enhancements that we've been working with various organizations to incorporate into the bridges. We've been working with our Parks and Recreation Department, local and state historic offices, San Antonio River Authority, and some of their committees as well. Basically, the idea is mosaic panels to decorate the bridges. And the Mulberry Bridge will have an aquatic theme, and the Mill Race Bridge will have more of a golf and historic theme. This shows just some of the concepts for the bridges. And again, there'll be some good opportunity after the meeting to really look at that in more detail, how that would be applied. And this is for the Mill Race Bridge. For most of us, it's hard to picture how does that fit on a bridge, but that's where we can look at some of the details. The schedule of these projects, the construction will begin in December of this year. And what we're doing is focusing on the Mulberry Bridge. What we're going to do is we're going to bid that project with an accelerated schedule so that we actually have incentives in the project for the contractor to shorten the duration of the project. The faster they get it done, the more money they make. Obviously, it's got to be done with quality. But the reason we're doing that is we need a full closure of Mulberry for about a 4-month period. Now, that's going to be a tough pill to swallow in this area where you have limited access, and we recognize that. That's why we're building in incentives